Hey guys, welcome to this tutorial. My name's Timstead. Today I'm going to be going over part 4 of how to make enemy AI in the Blender game engine. So in part 3 we set up this navigation mesh and we gave our player a vision cone. I think we also set up the alert state, so state 2, and we set up our attack state, so state 4. So in this tutorial what I'm going to do is I'm going to be going over state 3. So we'll get the main basis of that finished, and then we'll also add our player and possibly add a couple other bits and pieces. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to press Shift S, cursor to center, then Shift A, and I'm going to add myself a cube, move it over here, move it up a bit. This is going to be a cover sensor, like so. Under physics, it's going to be an actor. We don't need ghost, actor is just fine. It's going to have the property cover. The first thing I'm going to do is press numpad 7 to go into top view, press Z to go into wireframe, and then I'm going to add my first cover over here, R to rotate, and I'm just going to move it in the center, so somewhere around there. Move it down a bit so our player can collide with it, and numpad 7 again. Just move it across a bit, then Shift D to duplicate, R to rotate, and we'll just do it for this one over here as well. Maybe SX to scale it down a bit, because our player is going to be coming in from all sides, so something like that. Then duplicate, and we'll put another one over here, so something like that, in the center of each object, and then we'll rotate over here, move it in, and something like that. We'll do it for these last few on the outside, so one over here, and I'm going to do one on this side over here because our player is going to start off here. Then Shift D to duplicate, R to rotate, and I'm going to put another one over here. I think maybe we can put one on this side. So rotate it, maybe even just somewhere in the corner like that. And I think, oh, we got that one over there, so Shift D to duplicate, add another one over here, so something like that. We can add one for the little one, but I mean it's smaller than the player, so it's probably a little silly to have this one be a proper valid object, so I'm gonna leave that one just how it is. However, what we do need to do is, as you'll notice, the player's movement cube is fairly large and the gap around each object isn't. So I'm going to go back into texture view, select my object here, press S to scale, move it in, and we want it to be fairly small and allow a nice sort of edge around each obstacle, and we want to do that for all of them, so roughly about the same size, something like that, something like that. Do it for this one over here, this one over here as well, and this last one over here, as well as the one in the player's vision cone. So that one have to be fairly small as well. And this one over here, I think we forgot. I'll just scale it in a bit more. So something like that. And this is basically just so our player, when he does try find his cover, he is going to be able to walk around without getting stuck on the corners. So the next thing I'm going to do is down here, my UV image editor, I'm going to change to text editor, and then in the description will be a link to a script. It's originally from a tutorial by Mr. Larodos showing you how to add a turret for a tower defense game which tracks the closest object. So go ahead and get that. There'll also be a link to his channel if you want to go ahead and check that out. So once you've downloaded the script, what you can do is you can click text, open text block, or you can just click new, and then we can, I guess, just call this track.py. So name it whatever you want, and then you can just copy it and paste it in, like so. And then the next thing I'm going to do is over here, select all three. Then the next thing I'm going to do is select my cube here. I'm going to go to the third state, taking cover. And here I'm going to add a near sensor. Now if you notice in the script, the near sensor is meant to be called nearer. I don't think that really makes sense though, so I'm going to delete those two, just leave it at near. You could put in closer if you wanted to, that would make more sense, but I'm just going to put in near, like so. Then here cover is the property, and I'm going to set this on a true pulse. The distance for him to find the cover, I think from there to there, maybe 80, reset distance of 85. This is just basically so our player can find any bit of cover around the map, so whatever he wants to run over to. And then the next thing I'm going to do here is add a Python controller, join the two up, select our Python script, then here I'm going to add a steering actuator to take advantage of our navigation mesh. And then in our navigation mesh I'm going to type in A, and then there we go, our navigation mesh. And basically what we want our player here to do is run over to the cover. So the velocity for this is going to be fairly high, maybe around 12. Acceleration, we can turn that up to 4, and it's going to be on the y-axis. So if we go to local, yep, on the y-axis it's going to be running. So we'll join that up to this other side. You'll notice the tracker is called tracker here, so we'll type in tracker. However, in Mr. Laroto's tutorial, what he does is he uses a track2 on an edit object. However, we're not using an edit object, we're using a steering actuator using the mesh as well. So what we're going to do is in the target object here, if you hover over it, pops up with a little box saying target object, then underneath in more dull script it says Python colon and then steering actuator dot target. Now if we go back to our script here, this is for our edit object actuator, it says track actuator dot object. However, we don't want dot object, we want dot target. So we'll replace object with target, like so, and now that will replace this field. And so now when our player decides on where he wants to go, it will fill this field and then he'll go towards it. So we'll minimize all those ones, and then what we also want him to do is once he does collide with the property cover, if we can select his movement cube again, here we go, and then when he collides with the property cover, I guess you could leave that on tap, or maybe we'll just leave it how it is. Then we're going to add an AND actuator, and what this is going to do is it's going to set him to state 4. So he's basically, going to go start attacking once he has got to the cover. So we'll set it to state 4, like so. Minimize those 3. Then also what we're going to do is we want animations going while he is running to his cover. So I'm going to add an AND controller here, join that to that, and this one here I'm going to join up to running for the gun as well as running for the enemy. And also what we want is when our player gets to the cover, we want him to duck down behind the cover. So what I'm going to do here is add an action. It's going to be called duck down. Then I'm going to select enemy rig for the enemy rig. It's going to start, it's going to be the opposite to stand up, so it's going to be 280 to 310. Like so. Then on the gun, same thing, duck down, and then we'll select gun action, 280, and then 310. Okay, and we want that happening when he collides, so this top one here, maybe we'll minimize this AND controller and move it up with the up arrow. Then with our collision here, we'll join that up to the duck down. So it ducks down when he collides with the cover. Okay, so duck down for both of those. Then also what we want it to do, as it's already doing, is just change it to state 4. So on state 4 what we have set up is if he's colliding with the cover, he's going to stand up immediately, and that's both for the gun and the enemy rig. However, this is set to true, so if he's constantly colliding with the cover, he's going to be constantly getting up from a down pose, and that will sort of look silly. So what I'm going to do to fix that is here, I'm going to add a property, and this is going to be, maybe we'll just call it attack, like so. It'll be a boolean. Then what we're going to do is when it collides with cover, we can turn off the true pulse. On our enemy movement, we're going to add a property, and this is going to be assigning attack to true when it's colliding, obviously. I guess if it's not colliding we can set attack to false, but otherwise everything else seems to work fine. Also, what we need to do, just noticed, is our running is 235 to 280. That's actually wrong. It's 235 to 275. So we need to fix that for the enemy rig and also for the gun. So 275. Like so. Now what we want to happen is when our property attack is equal to true on a true pulse, then we'll add an and, join that to that, and we'll add a property on this side, and this will assign timer -1. So as you'll notice, we're using the same timer here and we're just minusing off it. So we'll minimize these ones, and now what I'm going to do is when the property timer is equal to, and if we select our rig here from 280 I think to 310, that is 30 frames. So when our timer is equal to 660 minus 30, so I think that is 630, that is basically when this animation will have finished playing. So as well as that, we might also want our player maybe staying behind cover after he's ducked down behind it for a bit longer. Maybe we'll give him a couple seconds, so maybe we can turn that down to 570. So now he has 2 seconds. Okay, and we'll set that to a tap. And so when that is on a tap, we're going to add a AND controller here, join that to that. I'm going to select my movement cube again, so it's at the center of focus. Then here I'm going to join it up to a stand up, so our character gets up, or our enemy. Then I'm also going to do stand up for the gun. And we'll minimize that, and we just want him to be staying up the whole time. So I guess we can just leave it like that. Then the next thing we're going to do is add another property, and this is when he's decided he's done enough shooting. So maybe if we want him staying up for 1.5 seconds, 90, then we can have him duck down behind cover again. So here we're going to select when timer is equal to 570 minus 90, 480, and when it's equal to 480, then what he's going to do is he's going to duck behind cover again. We're going to set that on tap, and here we're just going to join it to duck down and duck down here as well. And now we're going to add one last property, and that is going to be when timer is equal to, and maybe we'll just make it 450 on a tap. Then it's basically just going to reset everything. So we're going to add an AND controller, join that to that, and here what we're going to do is we're going to join this one here to reset our values. So first one's going to be property assign timer to 660, so the starting value, do that, and then on top of that what we're also going to do is we're going to assign our property attack to false. What this will do is double check with our collision to see if he is still colliding. And now what we can do is I'm actually going to go back to state 3, then I'm going to select this I here, and also in our properties I'm going to select attack and timer. I guess we can select path as well. Then on the render settings at the top I'm going to scroll down and check debug properties so we can see them on the left side here when we press P. Okay, so if you want to see where our player is sort of walking off to, then what we can do under the tracker is change it to path following, and you can click visualize. So either path following or seek will work. If you select path following and press P with visualize selected, you can see where he's going to run off to, and when he gets behind the cover he ducks down, ducks up, and our timer isn't moving. So if you notice, our timer is -1. So I think what I've done is, if I go to state 4 on our property here, I've assigned timer to -1. I haven't added it, so I need to change that to add. So also what we have to do is make sure you have initial selected to 3, so your character starts on state 3. Also, what we need to do is here, our cover, we need to set on a true pulse. Maybe the frequency we can turn up to 50, so there's a bit of a delay, maybe even 60, just to be checking every second whether he's still colliding with it or not. Okay, so now if we scroll out a bit, press P, he decides to walk over to here, and then when he gets behind it, oh, there we go, he's glitching out. He's going to this one, he gets around the first object. Does he get around the corner of the second? I don't think he quite does. So what I'm going to do is first of all delete this mesh in the middle. So I'm going to press tab to go into edit mode, and there's this mesh in the middle which might be confusing him a bit, so I'll delete the faces of that. May as well do it for all the other ones as well. So I'm not quite sure why it does it, but it also puts navigation mesh on top of the object as well as underneath them. So I'm just quickly going to delete it so it doesn't get confused, like so, and do the same for these two, and there we go. So now I'll press tab to go out of edit mode. If you notice, if he is colliding here, we've told him to stand up, which we don't want. So I'm going to scroll in, hold down control, and cut over these last two, like that. Okay, and then if he's not colliding, we want him running, so that's all fine. So now if we press P, our character runs to one, ducks behind it, then gets up, shoots a bit, ducks behind again, and constantly does that, continuously. However, if you look in here, we don't have a player. So that's the next thing we're going to do, is add ourselves a player. So I'm going to press Shift A, add a cube, move it over here, press S to scale, make it fairly large, and here I'm going to make it dynamic. He's going to be an actor, and we'll give it collision bounds because we don't want him falling through the floor, and we'll call him player. Then I'm going to add a game property for him, and it's going to be called player. Then also what I'm going to do is here I'm going to add 4 keyboards. If you'll notice, the K is underlined, so I can just click in add sensor and then press K and do that 4 times, and W on a true pulse, we'll name it W, minimize that, S on a true pulse, A, and D. Then also what I'm going to do on this side is add motion, so you notice that is a T underlined, so we can just press T and do that 2 more times. So this one over here, that one to the next one, and I think positive Y is forwards, so we'll put 0.2. This one here we'll just do negative 0.1, so that's forwards and backwards. Then D is to the right, which is positive X, so I'm going to do negative X for A, and then positive X for D. Then we'll minimize all those like so, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my camera over here, move it over like that, and first of all what I might try to do is get in a good view like so. Then I'm going to press Control Alt and numpad 0, so that just aligns it to the view which I'm currently looking at. It's not quite where I want it to be, so I'm just going to press G and move it in, so something like that. And maybe that's a bit close, so Shift F, and then I'm going to press S to move out a bit, and I think somehow that should be good, so I'm going to click to confirm. Then with the camera selected, I'm going to hold down Shift, select my player, and then I'm going to press Control P, like so. Then, so we can see sort of all around the player as well to the camera, I'm going to add a mouse. It's going to be movement, and it's just going to be our mouse look script. So minimize that, and then in the description along with the other script will be a link to a mouse look, so you can go ahead and download that. So again, you can click create new text, or you can just open it. So once you've found it, select it, and then we'll click open. Then you can put it in here, and if we press P, then our player can now move along, and we can also look around our environment. However, I feel the camera is a little high, so I'm going to move it down a bit. I'm just going to press RX and move it up like that. Then I'm going to press numpad 0, and it's too much, so RX again, and we just want it leveled off, so something like that. There we go, and for some reason it's deleted the script, so we'll put that in there. So I think that is the majority of it working. Okay, so now if we press P, you'll notice our enemy runs off to some random location where he found some cover. He's going to duck behind, then he just faces in a random direction, as you can see, to the right, nowhere near where our player is. However, as you can see, if we were to move around and his movement cube was to spin a bit, you can see these little sensors here. It would be very easy for him to just sort of slip off and suddenly not be touching it, and then it just runs straight at you. So the first thing we're going to do to fix all of that is select our sensor, press S, X, and then X again, and I'm just going to make it a little wider like so. So SX and SX for this one, SX for this one over here. Maybe that's a bit funny, so SX and then X again. And we'll do it for these last two. Double tap X and scale them like so. So I think those ones are this one over here, X and then X again, and maybe we can move it in a bit more. And this one in the corner will do as well. And I think there's one under here. So we'll tap X twice and we'll scale that one a bit more. Then we'll select our movement cube. Minimize that, go to state 4, our attacking state, then we'll add a edit object, track 2, it's going to track to our player, so PL and player, and basically if we were to hook it up to 570, it would only look at our player for a very brief millisecond when it was equal to 570. So what we're going to do, instead of 570, is we're actually going to add another property. However, instead of being equal, this time it's going to be an interval, and it's going to be from the property timer, and this is the interval that we want our track to be happening. So as you can see, 570 he gets up, so, and then 480, what does he do? He ducks down again. So we'll try 480 to 570, so it's not giving us negative values. Then we'll add a AND controller, and we might need to set that on true, and now we'll join that up to our edit object. Might add a bit of delay, maybe 2, and now we can minimize all of those. Now our last thing I'm going to do, just to finish off this tutorial, state 5, and this is going to be when our player is too close. So maybe state 4, we can add a near sensor, and this is going to be, I guess, too close, and this is going to be when the property player is too close on a true pulse, and we're going to have to make this quite a small distance, so maybe 5 is too close for our enemy, 5 and 7, we will then add an AND controller, and we'll join that up to our too close sensor. Then here we'll add an actuator, and this will change it to state 5. So this will just be our melee state. So I'm going to go to state 5 over here, add an always on a true pulse, and this is just going to be playing our action for the enemy rig, and this is going to be the hitting action. So select our enemy rig, and I think that starts at 315, 315, 325, and finishes at 330. So 315 to 330, and this can be melee, I guess, like so. And now we'll add an AND controller, join that up to that, and that up to that. We also need an animation for the gun though, so under our gun, I'm going to add an action, and here we're going to select gun action, start at 315, and end at 330. We need to call this melee. So there we go guys, that's the end of episode 4 of how to make enemy AI in the Blender game engine. Next episode we'll be doing the death states, as well as finishing off this and hopefully getting some attacking animations going. So there we go guys, that's the end of the tutorial. If you did enjoy it, please do leave a like, comment or share. It's greatly appreciated and lets me know you're enjoying the tutorials. But either way, hope you're enjoying the series, have a great week, and I'll see you in part 5.